What's up, everybody? The VC here, coming at you with another video. It's another day of anything and everything, and that's what it's all about here. So subscribe, that way you can stay on top of this sort of daily content about literally anything and everything. But sometimes it's just, or more times than not, it's just focused on things that have been going on. And so let's take a look at what's been transpiring over the last 24 hours since Trump's been sworn in as president now in the United States for his second term. It wasn't concurrent because we had a little break with Biden in there, and Biden literally destroyed the country in 4 years. And so Trump's trying to put it all back together. All right, so let's get to it. We'll look at some of the highlights and lowlights over the last 24 hours. And some interesting stuff here. So this got my attention here. Biden and Kamala Harris booed upon entering Trump's inauguration. So I wanted to hear this. I haven't actually heard it yet, but I want to see what this sounds like or what the atmosphere was like on this one. So we'll start with this. That's the Clintons walking in.
Get matched today with the tax expert who's just right for your situation. They'll do your taxes from start to finish. And you can work with the same expert year after year with TurboTax Live Full Service. Hand off your taxes today.
Oh, they probably don't like the music, huh?
Of the United States, the Honorable Joseph R. Biden Jr., and Vice President of the United States, the Honorable Kamala Baby Harris.
That's crazy, huh? The Clintons got booed too. Alright, it's just playing through it again. Wait, I just had to hear it. It's pretty funny. But it's a great time to be patriotic once again, like the feel of patriotism and to me this has a good feeling of being what we really call the United States once again, It just feels good. Now this isn't actually a feel good, not the joy campaign that Kamala is running, but this actually feels good. Like I don't know, it's hard to describe the feeling of it, but this definitely feels good, and so it's good to see, it's good to feel, and to me it's exciting times. I can't wait to see what's gonna go on, in the upcoming days, months, weeks, years, as to what could possibly happen, though. Yeah, interesting stuff. And let's see here. Trump signed executive orders like literally right away. They said some like 200 some executive orders. So let's take a look at this here.
Oh no, they're implementing another work.
Sure. The first item that President Trump is signing is the rescission of 78 Biden-era executive actions, executive orders, presidential memoranda, and others.
So we're sending 78 orders from Biden. Pretty cool.
Thank you. The second item, President Trump, is a regulatory freeze, as you announced in your speech, preventing bureaucrats from issuing any more regulations until we have full control of this, the government and this administration.
Nice. I like that. Freezing regulations.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, can I have a pen?
The next item, sir, is a freeze on all federal hiring, excepting the military and a number of other excluded categories, again, until full control of the government is achieved and we understand the objectives of government going forward.
Nice. I like it.
Could you imagine Biden doing this? I don't think so.
I don't think so. That's true.
Sir, the next item, as you announced in your speech, is a requirement that federal workers return to full-time in-person work immediately.
That's going to hurt a lot of people's feelings.
Thank you, sir.
There is a lot of office
Next,
space.
we have a directive to every department and agency in the federal government to address the cost of living crisis that has cost Americans so dearly. Thank you, sir. The next item here is the withdrawal from the Paris Climate Treaty.
Very interesting.
Yes, sir.
That's going to hurt a lot of liberals' feelings.
We're going to save over $1 trillion by withdrawing from that treaty. And the next item, sir, is a letter that will be transmitted to the United Nations explaining that we are withdrawing from the Paris Climate Treaty.
So it's an extension of that.
Thank you, sir. This next item is a directive to the federal government ordering the restoration of freedom of speech and preventing government censorship of free speech going forward.
Because we all know what Biden has done with the media in terms of censorship. And it slowly unraveled and slowly became free. Meta, X.
And lastly, sir, before we go back to the Oval Office to sign a large number of other items, is a directive to the federal government ending the weaponization of government against the political adversaries of the previous administration, as we've seen.
I mean, all this stuff makes sense.
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it. Pretty fun job.
There's going to be some collector's items there.
Are you worried that using your home address for business puts your privacy at risk? At iPostal One, we can help. So, you've started your own company, but feel unsafe using your home address for business use. Not only does every customer and vendor see where you live, creepy,
200 some
but
executive
you could be
orders.
at risk for identity theft, property damage, and much more. With iPostal One, you can get a real physical street address to use for your business,
news outlet
so your
here
personal address stays protected.
All right. Hopefully
the
this
president
news
signed a lot of executive orders, some of them very
reports it correctly here. Let's see. Hopefully they do it.
serious, some of them more symbolic, like the effort to rename the Gulf of Mexico as the Gulf of America on official U.S. maps, one of the many changes he's trying to make as the executive without the approval of Congress. Nancy Cordes has been keeping track of all of it out of Washington. Nancy, it was a lot. Good morning.
It really was a lot, Tony. Good morning to you. Among the many executive actions Trump took yesterday, he pulled the U.S. out of the Paris Climate Accords again, froze hiring at the Internal Revenue Service, and he took a step toward denying birthright citizenship, even though it is authorized in the Constitution. Now, some of these moves are bound to face legal challenges, but he said he thinks he will win.
That's a big one. A lot of big ones, huh?
President Trump began signing a blitz of executive actions barely an hour after taking office, with aides providing stacks of
orders. I don't know how he
has the energy. Could you imagine Biden doing this? I don't think so.
Hell no.
In event after event.
This is a big deal. Merit.
He halted a ban on TikTok.
The U.S. should be entitled to get half of TikTok.
Designated drug cartels as terrorist organizations, and held an impromptu press conference in the Oval Office. It all capped a frenzied first few hours on the job. The president taking the oath of office.
I, Donald John Trump.
And saying the country's golden age starts now.
America's decline is over.
He added that he now knows why he survived an assassination attempt 6 months ago.
I was saved by God to make America great again.
Then he laid out how he plans to do just that.
I will declare a national emergency at our southern border. It will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female.
Forced into the Capitol by biting cold, Washington officials in many ways had a warmer welcome for the 47th president this time around. But after an inaugural address focused on the future,
2020, by the way, that election was totally rigged.
Trump returned to some familiar themes as he spoke to supporters right afterwards.
Liz Cheney is a disaster. She's a crying lunatic.
In another part of the Capitol complex.
I think this was a better speech than the one I made upstairs.
Earlier, Trump and First Lady Melania returned to the White House for a transition tradition with the outgoing president, one Trump had denied the Bidens 4 years ago.
Did you like my speech?
But only hours later, the new president insulted his predecessor.
One of the worst administrations in history. Maybe not one of them, the worst.
Later, in the Oval Office, Trump was asked whether Biden left him a letter with advice, another presidential tradition.
He may have. Wait. Don't they leave it in the desk? I don't know. Oh, it could have been years before we found it. Wow. Thank you.
What does it say on the outside?
Maybe we should all read it together.
Let's read it.
We did not read it together, so we're still waiting to hear what it said. Late last night, Trump posted that he is firing more than 1,000 political appointees from across the government. There were reports of officials being told to resign at the State Department, at TSA, at the Coast Guard, and elsewhere. Now, it's not unusual for appointees to be let go when a new administration comes in, but normally they wait until the new officials are ready to take over. Nate?
All right.
Interesting stuff. Let's see. Trump details day one executive orders. What executive orders did Trump sign on inauguration? Maybe we should cover that, huh? What other executive orders? I don't know if we covered all of them. See what Trump's executive orders mean. Militarizing the southern border. Yep. Yeah, let's see if we get down to the bare bones on this one.
This is what Ivy League universities you can get into with a 3.6 GPA.
President Donald Trump sworn into office and signs the most executive orders ever by a president on day one.
He probably had it all in the works leading up to this day, and this matter of, all right, let's just sign them all now.
10 of them focus on immigration.
Today, I will sign a series of historic executive orders. With these actions, we will begin the complete restoration of America and the revolution of common sense.
Let's look at the changes Trump is making. I'm Marianne Ahern. This is The Brief.
That's all I'm looking for.
President Trump is wasting no time. Those who know him well say in his first term, he also tried to make big changes, but was told, slow down. Congress moves more slowly. This time, he is not wasting any time.
He's not going to listen to nobody this
Immigration, one of his key campaign promises, and that's where he's focused on day one. Trump is declaring a national emergency at the border and is sending U.S. troops to the U.S.-Mexico border.
Yeah, we
he
read
also
that clearly
plans
yesterday.
to end catch and release and does promise to continue building the wall. Trump plans to label drug cartels terrorist organizations.
Yep.
He also wants to end birthright citizenship.
Yep.
Now, that's a constitutional protection, so he will need a constitutional amendment to change it. What he's calling for is this change going forward, not for those who have already received that protection.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yes, from the day on, from the time it's signed. So, to me, it makes sense. I mean, no, I don't know any other country in the world that does it, except for here, as Donald Trump says. So here's an example. All right, I have two brothers. I was born in Hawaii, and my youngest brother was born in California, but I have a middle brother, and we're all blood related and everything, but we did a lot of traveling. I had a Navy dad. So my brother in the middle, he was born in Japan. So does that mean he's a citizen of Japan now? No, they probably don't even recognize that, right? So what's the difference between other countries that don't recognize, quote unquote birthright citizenship, when it doesn't make sense here, because it really gives illegal immigrants, it doesn't matter what country you're from, a way for them to just come here, have their kid born, and now you can't just leave your kid here because they're a citizen, right? And it's almost like attachments to that, and to end all this BS and abuse of a system, I do believe that there shouldn't be any birthright citizenship, since we're the only country in the world that really does that. But I don't know. I also was looking at the context of the 14th Amendment as well. So it could be a misinterpretation or a misunderstanding of what it really is. But hey, I guess we'll see what happens.
What is birthright citizenship? It means if you are born in this country, you are a citizen of this country. Even, let's say, your parents may be from another country, but if you are born here in the U.S., you are a U.S. citizen. As soon as he took office, he ended what many asylum seekers had been using. It's a mobile app called CBP One. It helped to restore order as those sought appointments at the border to try to get into the U.S. As soon as Trump took office, that CBP One app, it no longer existed. It was shut down. Next up, the economy.
Yeah, that, and simply just lining up. There are all the tools for illegals to come in and set up appointments, and appointments are so stretched. They're like 10 years backed up and all that, and so that means that in the meantime, while they're waiting for their appointment hearing in 10 years, they're still here, right? So he put a squash on all that. That way there will be no waiting here. And part of that waiting is, if you want to come here, you're going to remain in Mexico.
Economy. As Trump puts it, let's make America more affordable again. And in that respect, he plans to unleash energy policies.
I will also declare a national energy emergency. We will drill, baby, drill.
Trump also plans to end leasing wind farms. He wants to expand domestic energy production. He also wants to lower EPA emissions on cars. Trump plans to also withdraw from the Paris Climate Accords.
Man,
that Paris Agreement, adopted back in 2015, it is legally binding, and it's meant to fight climate change. Not everyone agreed with it. Certainly Donald Trump does not. However, at that time, yes, President Obama in charge did agree. On the economy, we're looking for executive actions, not necessarily orders. As he sees it, these energy measures will reduce the cost of living.
Yeah, we need it.
As far as core Republican conservative values promised all along by Trump during his campaign, he says those DEI policies, they're going away.
Tired of that woke
Instead,
bullshit.
he'll be focused on colorblind and merit-based. He's also issuing a federal mandate that there are only two sexes, male and female. How might that impact all of us? Well, it could even impact your passport or other federal documents. It could impact education policy. It could impact the military. We're going to be watching that for sure. Trump also has big plans to rename the Gulf of Mexico and Mount Denali. Let's start with the Gulf of Mexico. As for the Gulf of Mexico, Trump says he'd like it called the Gulf of America. It's not unusual for bodies of water to have different names, but for Trump to make this big change happen, he's also going to have to work with international hydrographic organizations to see it through. Even if that happens, other nations may not recognize the name change. When it comes to Denali, that was an Obama rename. It was changed from Mount McKinley. Today, Trump says he will restore that name to Mount McKinley to honor President William McKinley. Why was it called McKinley to begin with? A gold prospector gave it that name. He was an admirer of McKinley at the time, although we've read McKinley never visited Alaska. Nevertheless, that was the name since 1896. Officially, the federal government also agreed back in 1917. However, President Obama in 2015 changed the name to Denali. Denali means the high one in its Native American origin, and that's why President Obama gave it that honor. However, Trump tried to do this in his first term. The Alaska senators said no, they objected. However, today he plans to go forward and rename it Mount McKinley. Overall, very busy day one start. We're already seeing.
Man, some crazy, interesting stuff. All right, here's another good one. This is a good one right here. All right, this is the one I've been waiting to see here. Let me see if I can find that clip here. I thought it was going to be a good one. Let me see here. Oh, here we go. Here we go. We got to play this.
Imagine making $453,000 in a single month as an affiliate marketer without...
I will declare a national emergency at our southern border. All illegal entry will immediately be halted, and we will begin the process of returning millions and millions of criminal aliens back to the places from which they came. We will reinstate my Remain in Mexico policy. I will end the practice of catch and release, and I will send troops to the southern border to repel the disastrous invasion of our country. Under the orders I signed today, we will also be designating the cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. And by invoking the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, I will direct our government to use the full and immense power of federal and state law enforcement to eliminate the presence of all foreign gangs and criminal networks, bringing devastating crime to U.S. soil, including our cities and inner cities.
That was President Trump today's inaugural address. The President and the First Lady now arriving in the Capital One Arena. He attended the presidential parade. He's about to speak in moments. We want to get to Tom Homan first. Tom Homan, the National Border Czar, he joins us now. Can you talk to us, Tom, about how you say Democrats and the media are overreacting to Trump securing the border and deportations, because Europe is cracking down on illegal immigration? Belgium, France, Germany, Italy, Sweden, UK.
So
can you talk to us more about
anybody
the
else in the world can do things, but we can't.
In sanctuary cities?
It doesn't make sense.
Look, the president's been clear that right out of the gate we're going to concentrate on public safety threats and national security threats. So I can't believe that any elected politician, I don't care what party you're from, why would you not want public safety threats out of your communities? I mean, that's your number one responsibility as an elected official, is to protect your communities.
So the deportations are coming tomorrow?
Yeah, ICE is going to start doing their job tomorrow. They haven't been able to do the job for the last 4 years, and now they're going to start enforcing the law like there should be.
In which sanctuary cities?
There's not specific sanctuary cities. They're going to do it throughout the country. I mean, we have officers throughout the country, and every ICE officer is going to be out there enforcing the law starting tomorrow morning.
So those are 24 ICE offices, right?
Yes.
Across the U.S. Have you ever seen any nation's border so abused as it was under Biden?
Absolutely not. I mean, a nation without borders isn't a nation, and this has become the biggest national security vulnerability this nation's ever seen. Everybody ought to be on the same side of the issue. A secure border saves lives, saves American lives, and saves migrant lives.
Can you talk to us more about that? Because people feel like, especially people overseas in places like South America, keep the border open. It's okay to abuse the border. People need a shot at getting into America illegally. We've seen numbers that tens of thousands of women, children, men die illegally crossing, or they're either sex trafficked or human trafficked into dangerous labor conditions.
Yeah, look, the death of aliens crossing the border is at a historic high, over 4,000 under this administration. We got over 250,000 Americans dead from fentanyl coming across that open border. We got a 600% increase in sex trafficking of women and children. We got a record number of people on the terrorist watch list, a 3,500% increase on terrorist watch list, people coming across the border. Secure borders saves lives. When President Trump had illegal immigration on 90%, when 90% less people are coming, how many women weren't being sexually assaulted? How many women and children weren't trafficked? How many Americans didn't die because the border security? They didn't die of fentanyl. Secure borders save lives.
Do you feel like the American media is covering what you just said?
Absolutely not. This network does, Fox does, but most of the media does not. They've been covering up the border crisis. Look, not once have they spoken up about this out of control border, but they'll talk about the fentanyl deaths, but they won't talk about what causing that fentanyl deaths is out of control border. No, this has been a hidden story for 4 years. Thanks God for Fox News. They're the only network out there telling the truth.
Do you know what executive orders President Trump is about to sign?
Yes.
All right. So we all know, like, technically day one is today, even though day one was yesterday, but in terms of carrying out operations to remove, first off, the illegals that, the ones with felonious records are the ones they're going after first. But basically everybody's illegal anyway, isn't it? That came in through the border because, they all broke the law in that way. So good stuff, very good stuff, very exciting stuff, right? And I'm sure there's probably, people crying and stuff right now. Let's see here. Changes at the border. Yeah, they militarized the border. We need to secure the border, so it's good. Chicago on alert for immigration raids. Very interesting. Changes have been seen immediately. You see that, huh? Pretty interesting. All right, we'll leave it at on this one.
Great.
On the note.
The new GoDaddy Arrow has AI marketing tools to help small businesses easily reach.
Joining me now, I have Lieutenant Chris Oliveras with the tech scientist.
Good morning. See that we are going to see changes, and also the allowing over 900,000 plus migrants to enter the United States inadmissible. The fact that they were used, the outgoing administration was using mass parole to actually facilitate the CBP-1 app and the release of, especially with the cancellation of the CBP-1 app, how effective it was that same day. So I do foresee that we are going to see changes just immediately. We're seeing it right now on the border right now, of course, with some of these executive orders. But, going back to some of these executive orders designating the cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, and also the mass deportations. I think that in itself obviously is going to be, it's going to take some
and
time
some people have
as this process goes on, but we are seeing some of that immediate change
deported
just based
as
off
well.
that CBP app, which
rather
was allowing
be freed
over
than
900,000
arrested.
plus migrants to enter the United States. Inadmissible. The fact that they were used, the outgoing administration was using mass parole to actually facilitate the CBP app and the release of migrants into the country. That in itself is going to be a huge factor in decreasing the flow of migration at the border.
And Lieutenant, let me just, to your point, list off a couple more of these orders from the laundry list that we saw signed last night, declaring a national emergency at the border, stopping catch and release, reinstating remain in Mexico, resuming border wall construction, designating cartels as global terrorists. What more do you want to see here in the coming days, sir?
Mark, I think that in itself is really something that we were looking for from the very beginning. I know Governor Abbott had provided a letter, back in 2022 to the outgoing president about what changes we needed on the border, and that was one of them, was actually designating the cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, infrastructure, and the fact that we need to actually go back and follow the rule of law, federal law, that would help decrease the flow of migration. Of course, we didn't see that in the last 4 years, but now with some of these executive orders, I think it's going to help us in Texas and, of course, law enforcement across the border slow that flow of migration and focus on the needs of the country, and that is, border security, public safety threats, national security threats. I think it's going to give us more time now to actually do that. And the fact that now we have an ally with the federal government working together, it's really going to be more beneficial.
As to when that's going to start or what that's...
Crimes that are currently in our Texas jails that are here illegally that have committed crimes. We want to focus on those individuals.
Before I let you go, Lieutenant, the Laken Riley Act was passed by the Senate last night. It now heads to the House, where it will likely pass as well. Then to the president's desk. Of course, she was the Georgia nursing student who was heinously murdered at the hands of an illegal migrant. And I think a lot of Americans are saying, okay, if this is put in place, what protections are in it for me and my family? How will this protect Americans everywhere?
Well, I think it focuses more on those, criminal migrants that have committed crimes, maybe not violent crimes, but the fact that they've committed misdemeanor crimes, thefts, that would actually lead to a much larger result of committing more violent crimes. And we're able to actually hold those individuals accountable when they commit some of these minor crimes and get them removed. That would...
It just should be automatic deportation no matter what anyways.
Traders? They were a group
that should have been from the very beginning.
Who were trained by
And within hours of his presidency, the Trump administration shut down a border app called CBP-1 that allowed migrants to legally enter the U.S. in South Florida.
Margelis Tinoco breaks down in tears at the Mexican-U.S. border.
This is liberal tears,
Her asylum
too.
appointment scheduled for today was canceled. President Donald Trump shut down a mobile app known as the CBP-1, which enabled Tinoco and thought to enter the United States through legal ports of entry. The website now says all appointments are canceled.
We have 31,000 people.
Even better.
People to sign up, walk through a line, be interviewed.
We asked immigration attorney Willie Allen what options exist for Tinoco and many more like her.
I'm not sure what's going to be the next approach. I am concerned.
Just line up.
Not surprised at all. Jepsy Meletus, an immigration activist in South Florida, tells me her organization and many others began preparing for the executive orders announced today.
It's also important that our family members take every measure, every action that's possible to protect their assets, their children, and their interests.
She tells me they will be holding workshops for a wide variety of immigrants.
Unfortunate people that have already gotten into the process, that he's going to cut that off now. I don't think that's fair. If they were already, they should be grandfathered in. If they were already in the process of doing some kind of immigration legally.
Mixed reactions on Monday at this Cuban
but none of it
landmark
was legal.
where many of the president's supporters gathered.
We cannot have open border and everybody come in and they check him in and they have a pass and they send him to Chicago or New York.
And I will send troops to the southern border to repel the disastrous invasion of our country.
The first part of his inaugural address was dedicated to border security.
All right, so enough of all that. So we all know what we did. All right, so those are the main things that was taken into action. All right, and I like it. I like everything. I mean, everything is restoring to common sense. I mean, literally already day one, it's already washing away the progressive stains of bullshit that we had to deal with the last 4 years. And, it started with the whole pandemic, which didn't do us any favors. So, but we're beyond all that now, and I'm loving it, and I feel it just feels good, with this whole, to me, this patriotism, and I'm just glad it didn't come back to another, progressive 4 years, whether it was Biden or Kamala, because it could have just been status quo or worse. I mean, there's no way it could have gotten better than where it's at now, before day one of Trump. Um, and the back end of things here, and speaking of Biden, he snuck in some more pardons as he was leaving office. They said literally it was like 15 minutes before the inauguration of Trump that Biden snuck in some more pardons, especially as the rest of his family members. And, right there, Biden pardons family members minutes before Trump sworn in. So that's some crazy stuff right there. But the biggest ones that besides the Jan 6 committee, Fauci, General Milley, everybody say that it's because he was in contact with China. They went after what's her name, Liz Cheney. She's part of the Jan 6 committee. The Jan 6 committee is a bunch of bullshit about the so-called conspiracy to the 2020 election, and she and it's not her right there, but there she is right there. And that the thing about her was that she was contacting witnesses, tampering, right? So that was the whole thing with tampering, that you could really throw out all the testimonies, all the stuff, all the bullshit with this whole Jan 6 committee stuff that never really came to anything. And so they would have went after all these people hard. Fauci, I don't know if it has something to do with anything to do with pandemic, probably, obviously, and then Milley with China. And then the whole family of Biden's were pardoned. And that's primarily due because they're, the crime family. That way no one can go after them for all the shady dealings and stuff that they were dealing with, the use of the Biden name and all that stuff. It's a bunch of crap. All right, so let's just see what this was about.
File free in the app by 2/18. When you switch to TurboTax, do it yourself.
But in essence, everybody says that's an admission of guilt, because if they were to go, let's just say the government does try to go after any of these people, they could have just stood their ground and did their thing in terms of really showing and proving their innocence. But by doing this, I mean, this whole pardon stuff, preemptive pardon, by the way, to me, it just really shows you that they got something to hide, right? And it is an admission of guilt. That exactly what it says here. It exposes the deep state corruption and cover up, right? Starting with Hunter, tracing back to 2014 to now, and any other shady business dealings that this family has done under his name. So it was definitely in the final minutes of the presidency there. Yeah, that was definitely, he snuck that in, tried to do it quietly. Even Biden himself is corrupt, and only he got lucky, especially when Robert Byrd did that, I don't know, sort of review of his mental capacity, especially when they found files in Biden's garage. And it's like, well, why would you put, these sort of files from the, presidential library of the government in your garage? And he blamed it on a failing mental capacity of Biden's mind that there's the reason why they're not going to charge him. It's like, come on now, really? It's like, this would expose probably a lot more. It seemed like Robert Burr was in a part of this thing too, but Robert Hur, sorry, Hur is what I meant. And I don't know, it just, everything about the last 4 years screams of just cover up this, cover up that. If you criticize this, then you're bad. Everything else about conservatives is bad, bad, bad as well. And it's like, come on. All right, and look at this stuff, all the cover-ups. Preemptive pardons too. These are all preemptive. And it's funny how he says his family been subjected to attacks and threats. What about the other opposite end of the aisle, as the government was weaponized by him to attack Trump and any supporters of Trump in that regard, right? I don't know. It's just bullshit. Always deflecting. Believe in the rule of law, but yet you had an open border and did all this bullshit. Come on. Sounds exactly what happened to Trump. Yeah, so a bunch of crap. Alright, so lastly, on that note, let's see what wildfire progress we got now here. Wonder if there's any new updates here. Yeah, with San Diego fire going on right now, all of a sudden. Now we're checking on this. Let's see here. 59% containment, 87% on Eaton. So we'll stay up to date on that. Go from there. All right, so that's the latest on everything. I just wanted to cover all that stuff. I'm excited. Exciting times are ahead, and can't wait to just watch it all unfold. Good times once again. Other than that, comment down below. Let me know what you think. Thanks. I'll see you next one.